Hi guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's March 6th, 2021, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you to those that reached out and gave us some well wishes regarding this positive COVID test I had. I feel very fortunate, although I had some symptoms for a few days. I was much better off than the over 500,000 people that didn't fare so well and lost their lives to this pandemic. So thank you very much. And again, out of an abundance of caution, Steve and I are going to remain apart for this week, and we'll be back together next week. But wanted to follow the rules, do the quarantine thing and so forth, and do our part to make sure that this thing gets taken care of as more and more people get vaccinated and so forth. But I look forward to Steve being back with us next week. So I wanted to start off, of course, with our monologue. And our monologue this week is... there's an NBA All-Star game, and we kind of talked about it briefly a little bit, like not even sure why they're having it. And first and foremost, we know that they're having it for the television ratings and so forth, but this is a unique year in that a lot of people in the NBA would wish they didn't have it, because not only because of the coronavirus and so forth, but people have lost interest in it. I know that I have. I mean, yes, it's a showcase for the greatest basketball players in the world. There's no doubt about that. But it's not, it really is just it's like a practice for these guys. There's no defense. There's no effort put into it. So I don't even know why they continue to even have the NBA All-Star game. It's gotten to be similar to the NFL Pro Bowl, right? Nobody wants to risk injury. Nobody's playing at 100%. Nobody's putting forth the effort. And I think the difference, the one sport that I still think the All-Star game at least has a little bit of meaning, and maybe the NBA and the NFL ought to try this. I don't think it's not viable in the NFL as much as the NBA, but there has to be something to play for. And in Major League Baseball All-Star Game, I think these guys do put across the effort, because there is some sort of an incentive, as there's home field advantage for the winning team come playoff time. So I think that adds a little bit more incentive for them to play a game that the people really want to watch. But just to watch guys run up and down and shoot three-pointers uncontested and let them drive the lane and slam dunk all time, it'll be 175 to 168. And I think at least this year they should have considered just postponing it because of the shortened off season for the NBA. But they're moving forward with it. I don't know who's gonna watch it, but not me. So that's my thought on the All-Star game. And again, it's more for the younger kids that I like to see these guys shoot it and dunk it. But it really is a game without a lot of effort put into it, and I think, especially with the events of the past year, this would have been a good year to take a break from it. That's just my thought on it. And our first segment is sponsored by, of course, Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York, and hopefully their family and business associates and everybody is healthy, and we thank them for their consistent support of Sports with Mono and Mono. So let's move on to the NFL. And there's a lot going on in the off season this year in particular, and we talked a little bit about J.J. Watt being released by the Texans, and again, the whole Texans situation. I just can't wrap my arms around it. I don't know what happened there, but everybody seems to want out of there. But at least the Texans did something, and I'm not sure why. I thought they could have gotten something for J.J. Watt if they traded him, but they just flat out released him. And he signs unexpectedly, I think, with the Arizona Cardinals. I think a lot of people thought he was going to end up in Green Bay, or there was a lot of speculation about Cleveland as well. But he's going to the Cardinals. And that was kind of a surprise, but I don't know if it was a money thing or he thinks that Arizona has one of the better nucleuses of a playoff team and so forth. I mean, they do have Kyler Murray. He's an exciting player, so he got the money, and we talked a little bit about it. I think he's still got some. J.J. Watt still got some gas in the tank, so I think that's a good sign for the Cardinals. But a little bit of surprise. And again, when we go back to the Houston Texans, and I'll say it before and I'll say it again, Deshaun Watson signed that contract, and I certainly hope that the Texans hold true to their word that they're not trading this guy, because this has gotten out of control where people just up and decide that they want to go somewhere else. And I'm not sure the behind-the-scenes thing going on with a Russell Wilson in Seattle. I don't know who perpetrated the fact that either he wants to be traded or he doesn't want to be traded, but I'm not ruling it out that he does get dealt somewhere. And again, I think that'd be a bad move on Seattle's part, because they signed him to a major league contract just a couple of seasons ago. He's still got a lot left. I think he's a winner. I like him. He's a good kid. But these guys are just up and deciding where they want to play, regardless of whether they have a contract or not. And I think that's getting to be out of control. So a lot of other things going on from the NFL perspective, off-season stuff, right? We saw, and again, this is a great feel-good story, Alex Smith making that comeback and having a 5-1 record for the Washington football team. He was released. Now, I guess obviously they got Heineke, they paid him some money and so forth. So I don't think this is a knock on Alex Smith. I think this is strictly a financial move. But he would be a good backup. I would take him on my team. I mean, he's such an inspiration that can only be a positive. So I'd consider the New York Giants taking a serious look at bringing him in as a backup for Daniel Jones. Not that he has a propensity for injury, but you never know. He's a running quarterback, and that'd be a good move for the Giants to take at least a long consideration. And again, Alex Smith is no kid. He's 36 years old, but that'd be worth a look at because. Again, he came back from this injury, but you never know how long it can sustain itself and so forth. But these players getting released by their teams, and again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the salary cap is going to be lowered. So we saw what happened in Pittsburgh, right? Ben Roethlisberger was scheduled to make a ton of money. He's still going to make a lot of money, but he had to rework the deal to stay in Pittsburgh, which I think is a good move for them. I think he still has a little bit left in the tank. I wouldn't go much past this season, to be quite honest with you. But I don't think they had a plan to fill that void. Certainly Dwayne Haskins is not going to be the answer. I'm not even sure why they brought him in to begin with, but Big Ben is going to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers at a reduced rate. And other salary cap names coming up, and Kyle Rudolph from the Vikings played his whole career there, Notre Dame guy, and really an off the field, just a stand-up, guy gives back to the community and so forth. And but he handled himself with class, and he'll be signed. He's only 10 years in the league, so he's got some he's got some gas left in the tank too, and I think it's a good opportunity for him to land, because I don't think the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders. So he's off, and he's out in free agency, and he's going to end up somewhere. I think a good fit would be New England. I think New England still needs to figure out their quarterback situation, obviously. A lot of speculation about, whether they're going to go with a quarterback in the first round. I still think Garoppolo is a strong possibility. He's got the experience, and Belichick knows him, so I could see that happening. Again, he seems to getting a little injury prone himself over the course of the past few seasons, but that'd be a good fit for Kyle Rudolph if Garoppolo does get there. And look for New England to bounce back. I don't think Belichick is going to let them go 7-9 again this year, because he wants to win. And there's a lot of players that are out there. Kyle Van Noy, actually former New England, signed a $51 million contract with Miami and played one season, and he was released. So, are these instances of these guys not having the ability? I think Kyle Van Noy had a very good year for Miami. I was a little bit surprised by that release. But again, it could be financial reasons. So, a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. And again, the draft is coming up. A lot of speculation about who's trading up or who's trading down. What do the Jets do with Sam Darnold? Those kind of things. They did leave that door open for people that, if they're going to place a call to Joe Douglas and the Jets, they're going to listen. Again, I don't know that Sam Darnold's worth anything near like a number one draft pick or something, but he does have some talent. I just don't know if he's somebody that, you could say we're going to build our franchise around. But so the speculation about the quarterbacks, right? It's Justin Fields, and it's obviously Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance, and these are guys that on paper look good, but filling a quarterback spot with a top 4 pick in the NFL draft is a very risky proposition. So let's see what happens with that. And listen, before we move off to the NFL, there was a significant milestone in the NFL, and Ncaa, first black woman to be a referee in the NFL. I mean, that's a significant, that shows, I guess, progress. I mean, there's been some women on the teams. There was one in the Super Bowl and stuff, but she seems like a really smart kid. She gives a lot back to the community, and we wish her the best as the first black woman to join the officiating ranks in the National Football League. And we wish her all the best. And one last note, and this is a note because it ties a little bit back to us. Greg Olsen is going to sign a one-day contract with Carolina, retired, and from a perspective of, he's a talented guy. He has a good chance to go to the Hall of Fame. I didn't think that about 10 years ago, but his career has been pretty good. But we used to see him play in high school. My nephew was his quarterback, and he was part of the Wayne Hills first championship team in high school football. And he's a nice kid. I've met him before. Very nice kid, and had a great career. Pretty good. Played with a couple of different teams at the end, but majority of his run was with the Carolina Panthers, and we wish Greg Olsen the best. I think he's going to find his way into the analyst booth in the NFL. But I wanted to note that because, like I said, we saw him play in high school, had a great career at Miami, and went on to an outstanding career in the NFL. Like to see those guys make it. Let's stick with football just for a moment because the the NCAA, right? There was a notable thing. North Dakota State had a 39-game winning streak snapped. They're playing. It looks like they're playing a spring football season due to the pandemic and so forth. But that's notable, and that's where Trey Lance is coming from. They're, when you want to talk about the FCS, I mean, you talk about North Dakota State. So that was kind of a big deal to see that streak come to an end. But I can't get used to this spring football season. So it seems like it kind of went under the radar, but we certainly noticed it. And a couple other things. As far as the NCAA college football season, I got to think, Reese Davis, who's going to stay with College Game Day and so forth. He is a consummate professional. He's going to stay there. He signed a kind of a long-term deal with ESPN to continue hosting, that College Football Game Day, which is, a great tradition in college football. He's a consummate professional. He's a class act, and that's a smart move, keeping him there, because he makes it exciting, and his chemistry with Corso and Herb Street. I think it was a great move, and I'm happy for him because when good guys in sports, when they stay doing what they do best, it's good for everybody. But there is one other note, and again, we talk about the Me Too movement and all of this, the disrespect of women and so forth. We've seen it in Major League Baseball with Mickey Callaway and all this kind of stuff. Here's a name that came up was Les Miles, who's now currently the Kansas football coach, but he's been on the radar for quite some time, especially when he was at LSU, and it's all coming to light now. So that he's just a non-professional and disregard for the women and so forth, and they've known about this, and the LSU athletic director knew about it, tried to get rid of him. But again, that's such a powerful position, a head football coach in a top 10 school, and he got away with it. But ultimately, you can get away with it for a while, but you can't get away with it forever. So he's now at Kansas, but Kansas did the right thing. They looked at this investigation that was going on, and they didn't know about it apparently when they hired him, but there has to be consequences for these guys. And, Les Miles won a national championship with LSU, but it doesn't dismiss, his track record of sexual harassment and all those kind of things. So I'm glad he got his up and comings, and you got to be held accountable for this. And there's no tolerance for it in any kind of sport. And he did get it, and he was suspended by Kansas. So I wanted to certainly mention that you can get away with something for so long, but you can't get away with it forever. So let's move on. And our Major League Baseball segment is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. Again, loyal supporter of our show, and you want a Toyota and you're in the tri-state area, you give President Michael Lynch a call and he'll take care of you. So there's a couple of things going on in Major League Baseball, right? Spring training's underway, but there was a notable item that came up in Major League Baseball, and I think it was long overdue. There's going to be an annual Lou Gehrig Day, and from listening to Sports with Mano and Mano how we feel about Lou Gehrig. I mean, you want to talk about a player, not only just a player, but a class act. And They're going to designate July 2nd as Lou Gehrig Day. One of only three now days that are recognized in Major League Baseball. There was always a Jackie Robinson Day, rightfully so, and also a Roberto Clemente Day. But they finally got around, and it's twofold, right? Not only recognizing what an unbelievable baseball player he was, but to bring notice to ALS, of which Lou Gehrig passed away. But that's long overdue. And, Lou Gehrig is the first player in Major League Baseball history to have his number retired. But when you compare him to the present day guys, there is just no comparison. And, when the closest thing to coming up into the league was like an Albert Pujols, right? His first 10 years in the league were amazing. Lou Gehrig-like, as we put it. But he's still in the league. A lot of people are even questioning, his true age and so forth, because he hasn't done anything compared to his first 10 years in the league. Lou Gehrig did it right up until, the end of his career. The numbers were consistently over the top great. And, we talk about guys that are compilers, right? The guys that stick around to get 500 home runs or stick around to get 3,000 strikeouts, 2,000 strikeouts, or whatever. You can't deny Lou Gehrig, and I think it's great to have somebody, came up with the idea, let's recognize him and put him in that category with Robinson and Clemente, and I think it's a great thing. So there was, Major League Baseball, and again, not that this is considered major surgery by today's medical standards, but Aaron Boone had a pacemaker, took a leave of absence, but he's going to be back in the dugout in the next day or two, because he suffered a heart attack back in, I think, 2009, had open heart surgery and so forth, but it's incredible the progress from a medical perspective that science has come so far. And he'll be back in the dugout, and Yankees are starting to look good. They got a good foundation, but again, they've had some good teams over the past few years. So baseball's major league is underway, but move over, because the Mets are going to make some noise in the National League, that's for sure. So we're going to see. We'll get, I guess spring training isn't as exciting as obviously as the regular season, but there's a lot of things moving with that. Jackie Bradley leaving the Boston Red Sox, that was a surprise. He's been a foundation fixture, and he's a great center fielder. Signs with the Brewers, so there's people moving around. But baseball is going to get underway pretty soon, and looking forward to it. Spring training is underway. So I'm going to stick real quick with, I wanted to bring up something in the NBA real quick, because we talked about this, a Wayne Gretzky card and all kinds of things happened. They're selling at these ridiculous amounts of money. But this is beyond ridiculous. A Luka Doncic rookie card sold for $4.6 million. And listen, I think he is great. He's one of the top 3 players in all of the NBA. But I don't know when this is going to get. When's it going to stop? But $4.6 million for a basketball card is amazing. I think that money could be put to better use, but he is a great player, but that's a lot of money. A lot of money. So that's it for the NBA. The NHL, it wasn't notable, and normally we reserve this for the end of our notable passings, but the greatest hockey player of all time, maybe the most dominant of any sport, any time, was Wayne Gretzky, but his father, Walter, passed away 82 years old, battling Parkinson's and so forth. But the NHL has Walter Gretzky to thank for bringing Wayne Gretzky into the world, and unfortunately he passed away this past week. So you rarely find somebody who's been recognized not as a player but as a parent of one of the players like Walter Gretzky was, and he was beloved by the entire hockey community, and unfortunately he passed away, but we wanted to recognize that. Still, from a New York Rangers perspective, they're starting to play some good hockey, but the Panarin situation has not been resolved. He's still on leave. I don't know when that's going to end, but they're certainly going to need him if they're going to make a run. But the NHL is starting to get exciting again. I really do enjoy it. And from a Rangers perspective, that's 2 hat tricks, in the past week for Chris Kreider. So that's something that's notable. He's always been a great player, but never scoring before like this. So we're turning the corner. We're getting closer to the halfway point for the National Hockey League, and nothing like playoff hockey, as we say. So we can't wait to get there. But the NHL is underway, and I was a little surprised. The Flames fired Jeff Ward as their head coach, brought back Darryl Suter, second stint with the Flames. And there's got to be more behind the scenes on that, because he had a pretty decent record. It was well above 500 overall. So you never know what's going on behind the scenes in the NHL from a coaching perspective. The coaching carousel changes from week to week there. But and again, Steve brought up several times that this is David Quinn's got to make this ship right in New York. But so it was an afternoon matinee game with the Devils and the Rangers this afternoon. Kind of like the Saturday afternoon hockey thing. It's always pretty good. And looking forward to the NHL, getting close to the halfway point and coming down the stretch. And they didn't disappoint last year. The NHL playoffs was excellent in front of an empty stadium in a kind of a bubble out west. But looking forward to that. So we're getting close to. You know what that means in the first weekend of April is the Masters, and we're getting close. We saw last week, excuse me, one of the young guns, Colin Morikawa, won the World Golf Championship. He's a young, up-and-coming guy, and again, we talked about it. There's a lot of good players on this PGA Tour, so I don't know that we're going to see this dominance like the Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus eras that we saw, because there's so many kids that could play. And this weekend's the Arnold Palmer Invitational, right, down in Florida, Bay Hill. And early leader, second round, Corey Connors, another guy. Never heard of him, really, for the most part, doesn't get much press. But he's a good young player, and it's wide open. And we're getting close. We're getting close to the Masters, and it's going to be when the Masters are supposed to be. So the azaleas are in bloom, and looking forward to that. Can't wait. Interesting thing, though, speaking of golf in Florida, and this is something that you don't really see. Some Florida guy had 3 holes in 1 in 5 days down in Florida. So you want to talk about guys having a streak of luck. That's something that most of us don't. I don't have any hole-in-ones. Steve actually does have a career hole-in-one, but to get 3 in 5 days, amazing. And I think this is, from a golf perspective, funny, because the guy couldn't make it as an NFL quarterback, and now Johnny Manziel thinks he's going to make the PGA Tour. Good luck. The kid's a nut. He's a joke. I don't even know why they give it any consideration like he has a chance. I mean, at least Tony Romo was a good golfer enough but to put it into perspective, to be a PGA Tour golfer, you have to be at a level that's such a small percentage compared to the Saturday afternoon hackers like us. I kind of laughed at it because the guy, he couldn't make it as a quarterback in the National Football League, and he now somehow thinks he's going to make it on the PGA Tour. Good luck. Real quick, we're going to move on to the NCAA because March Madness is coming. The tournaments are going to get underway this week, and a lot of good teams. And again, there's a little bit of a difference. Doesn't have the excitement, and I guess because the whole pandemic thing has kind of rained on a lot of stuff. But I think you got the Baylors, the Michigans. And we saw Oklahoma State, this kid Cade Cunningham for Oklahoma State. It's a great player, no doubt about that. And so there's going to be a lot of, the tournaments. I think the picks will be next weekend for the seedings for the NCAA. So get your brackets ready and good luck in your picks. My Niagara Purple Eagles will be down in Atlantic City this week for the MAC tournament. Just a small tournament, but Siena is a good basketball team this year, and they're normally the powerhouse in that conference. So, but looking forward to it. So there'll be a lot of shakeups going on leading up to the seedings, but that happens next week. And looking forward to college basketball and March Madness. So we're going to move on to our notable passings before we sign off this week, and there was one from the National Football League, and that was Irv Cross. And Steve and I talked about it. He was a consummate professional. He was one of the original members of the pregame show, which is now I can't even watch it. But back then we watched it with Musburger and Cross and Phyllis George and so forth. But not only was Irv Cross a very good analyst for NFL pregame show, he was a good player, and he was always a class act, and he passed away at 81 years old. And sticking with the National Football League, the Giants, John Mendenhall, and one of our listeners, Jim Walls, put up a good parallel. It was kind of like he was a very, very good player on a really bad stretch of teams for the Giants. But John Mendenhall, Jim Walsh brought up, it was kind of like Mel Stottlemyre, who was a great player for the Yankees on a lousy team, and never got to taste the championship trophy and so forth. But John Mendenhall was a very good player for the New York Football Giants, and he passed away. He was 72 years old, but very nice guy and a good football player. Also, and again, I bring this up because it was one of my older brother's college roommates, diehard Baltimore Orioles fan, but Joe Altobelli passed away. And Joe Altobelli, fixture, was the manager of the 1983 Baltimore Orioles championship team, but he also was kind of a legend up in Rochester, New York for the Red Wings. And all of those good players, the Cal Ripkins and all those players that came up and won a championship with the Baltimore Orioles came up through that system up in Rochester, and Joe Altobelli was instrumental in their development and so forth, and Joe Altobelli passed away. And there was one other notable passing this week I wanted to mention, and it just happened, was Mark Pavlich. And Mark Pavlich was a member of the Miracle on Ice team from 1980. We remember him. He played for a couple teams, including the Rangers in the National Hockey League. But he was 63 years old, and he's the second member of the 1980 team to pass away. Brent Suter passed away in 2014. So we wanted to make sure we recognized him because, he actually did assist on Mike Eruzione's goal. So he was very, very prominent on that team. And, unfortunately suffered some mental health issues, in the past few years. So we wanted to give a shout out to him and his family and thank him for the memories that he gave us that we'll never forget. And we just went through the anniversary of the gold medal winning team at the Lake Placid Olympics. Mark Pavlich, 63. And one last guy, and it's from the world of politics, was Vernon Jordan. Now, Vernon Jordan was a big figure in the civil rights movement and so forth. But I always kind of liked him. He was a very distinguished-looking guy and very polished and so forth. But he had a great career in politics, and like I said, he had a lot of civil rights background and so forth, and survived an assassination attempt and so forth. So wanted to recognize him. Sometimes we got to give a shout out to somebody, whether we agree or disagree with their politics or philosophies. If you had an impact on the world, then you get recognized. And I'm going to give before I sign off, I'm going to give a little thing from a notable passing, because it's not a person, it's a movie. And I watched Coming to America last night, which is the sequel to the great movie Coming to America back in the 80s with Eddie Murphy. Horrible. Do not waste your time. Rarely do sequels pan out in the movie industry, outside The Godfather, of course, but horrible. I can't believe that they made it. I sat there and I didn't crack a smile once. So if you got something to do and you got time to kill, don't waste your time watching this sequel. Eddie Murphy, can't believe you did it. It's terrible. Anyway, so listen, thanks for joining us, everybody. And again, Steve and I will be back together next week. Out of caution, we just decided to adhere to the quarantine rules and so forth. But I'm looking forward to being back with Steve next week. And he'll be doing the monologue next week, so can't wait to see what he has in store for us. So again, thank you very much for all of your support. And again, please send us an email at sportswithmano@gmail.com with thoughts and comments on the events throughout the world of sports or whatever you want to talk about, and we'll discuss it on the show. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to getting things back to normal next week. Enjoy. Thanks.